I think whenever you play any sort of game, or whenever you do anything in life, really, right?
Getting real philosophical.
Right. Do you play any instruments?
I used to play trumpet, clarinet, and French horn.
So like when you want to play, let's say piano, you have to, I don't know.
You start learning basic pieces, like very
you
basic songs.
Yeah, and
actually, you learn how to read the notes at all and what they mean. Actually,
sure.
you have to read. You still got to read, guys.
You
still got to read.
You got to start with like some basic fundamental skills.
Yes,
that's the whole point. In piano, that could be like just the first lessons you learn. I think the teacher. I mean, this was when I was a kid.
How to
put really place your hands on this keyboard instrument and just trying to play the notes with every single finger. So sort of introducing you the physicality of the instrument.
It's funny because even
this is a Black Desert podcast, but
yeah,
it's not a music podcast. So.
Wait, but like on the piano thing, it goes even more basic than that. At some point, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but at some point in school, they were teaching us how to use a keyboard, like one of these, like how to place your hand on one of these things. And
how to place your hand on the ASDF position.
Like, we forget that even like something as common, like so secondhand nature to us was even something that we had to learn at a fundamental level. And bringing it back, like Black Desert's no different.
What are the most critical, fundamental skills that you need to pick up in Black Desert that will lead to you being successful in PvP? Actually, no. Maybe I should rephrase that. We also want to think about what are the most important skills to focus on that will net you the greatest, I guess, return, the greatest amount of improvement for like time spent.
Right.
That's sort of the thing too, because I don't think all skills are like equally as important to master, to get good at. There are certain skills that if you get really good at this, you're probably better than, I can't put out an exact number because this is just like a random number.
99%.
90% of players.
90%.
I think it's fair. Like getting good at, okay, I think I'm going to spoil the first skill we're going to talk about, but getting good at staying protected.
Right.
You're better than maybe 90% of players.
I don't have knowing how to rotate, knowing how long it takes. There's a lot that goes into it. How long is this animation? Does it connect to this other skill fluidly?
Can I just keep like some protection icon up at all times?
Yeah.
Right. Why? Because if you do that, more often than not, you immune CCs. You just don't get CC'd. Right. And players die when they get CC'd typically. So
knowing how to never
get CC'd.
You can't like always never, but you can account and like, set yourself up for success.
Yeah, you're likely gonna win more games, get more kills, die less,
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. I think that is one of like the most fundamental skills in Black Desert. That's why, do you remember my Lemoria's lectures?
I do.
We're still cooking the next episode, by the way. I just came back. Okay, so it's been a while. I know the first episode came out a while ago, but episode 1, what was it about? Do you remember?
I do remember.
Did you watch the video?
Yes, I watched the video several times.
Okay,
which I shouldn't say that because now I can't remember. You're putting me on the spot. Okay. But no, I remember in the episode you talked about there's a lot of things going on in Black Desert. There's so many things that you have to account for. But how do you like sort of deal with that? How do you keep yourself protected? What do you look out for?
You just stay protected. Episode 1 was just about, guys,
stay protected.
Stay protected.
Should be serious. The first thing you try.
Because in episode 1 of this podcast, we talked about, during the movement section, we talked about the speed of our game.
Yeah.
Right? Like if
things happen so fast.
Things happen so fast. Like
you're not going to read this solar flare animation and then react to it. No, you need to know that when he's here, solar flare is coming out. Like, move out of the way.
Did you ever do any drills before when you were playing PvP?
Oh yeah, there's definitely times where I spent times in BA just like, okay, like episode 1, when we saw me just rotating through movement abilities without looking. It's not like you can just do that on a whim. Like at first, like, oh, like, okay, you have to get used to so many different things. You got to get used to the timing, like the feel of like the timing of how long like it's going to take for a skill to come up. You have to know that certain skills don't work into each other. like they do for other ones.
Right.
So yeah, like you just have to get really comfortable to the point where you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. And I know it sounds like we're describing protections from a sort of like defensive.
But you can use them
narrative.
aggressively too.
Yeah, because we call it protection, so that kind of implies defense.
That it's defense, but it's not always.
Our protections are placed onto like offensive skills.
Yeah.
Like all the time. It's not like always like protections only on mobility skills or something. Like Spirit Legacy is a big damage skill, but it has forward guard. Right. So when you also are fluent in your protections, the next step then would be, how can I maximize the value of every protection, right?
And what do you mean by that? Like maximize the value? Because there's like a lot of, you could maximize the value by holding on to the skill for a specific moment. You could even maximize the value of an ability through spacing, which we didn't even mention at all. We'll get to spacing. But you know, there's like so many different ways to express that.
All right, I want to get you on the DK then, because I want to use some visual example. For the listeners, you might not be able to see this, but we do upload this podcast to YouTube. So you see a Sork far away from you, and she's charging Dream of Doom, right? Like, should you dusk it? Should you just S block it?
I'll probably just block it.
Yeah, you might just block it. Should you? You can't SA. You can't super armor.
I can't super armor now.
Right. So why? I think a lot of players who get into their muscle memory would be totally okay with just using Dusk on it.
Yeah, no, I mean Dusk too. Like you could just use
she
Dusk.
throws the Dream of Doom at you, and
if it's just a Sork in front of me, yeah, like you can Dusk, you can frontal guard.
Yeah,
you can move out of the way, like try and get out of the way really fast too. You have a lot of options that you can, just that one thing heading at you, then you're okay. But if the situation escalates and let's say instead of a Sork with Dream of Doom, now it's like, oh, there's like 3 archers in a mage.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
My block is going to disintegrate. So
yes.
I will iframe that. I will iframe to the side. I will iframe away.
What's the iframe chain? All right, there.
I mean, you can just Dusk twice, but like if you wanted to let's say that's not enough, then you can Dusk, balance strike, Dusk again, air strike, Vizier strike away, and just get out of that situation.
I think when I watch a lot of, when I really try to pick apart like replays of people's gameplay or something, I like to look at whether or not a better option for protection would have been better at that specific moment. Did you ever get coaching when you were learning how to PvP?
I mean, yeah, because like I feel like a lot of us, if it was like when learning PvP, like yeah, there's times where I went into BA and someone like kind of explained stuff, or you just sparred like with a friend until you two like figured it out.
Did you ever go out of your way to talk to a expert or a master of a class and be like, hey, can you watch how I play and give me feedback or something? I know some players do that.
I didn't do that with Dark Knight at the time. But when I was learning Sorceress, like, yeah, I had someone literally just allow me to skip the line on like the whole learning process. And they're like, hey, this is how like you movement chain, which back then for Sorceress, it was very difficult to be able to movement chain between pre-awakening and awakening. It was tough. Like, there is actual different entire concepts that we won't explain on this podcast that we had to use to actually do that. But yeah, I did have like good players like look at that. And I not only had someone like coach me, I would look at videos, but I wouldn't only like look at one video or not even one player. I really liked going to different types of players just different players in general who had videos and just see what they did, because, everybody has their own style of playing. So I want to see, how did he move in this situation? How did they move in this situation? And just use that knowledge to then see, okay, well, maybe I can pull from that and use it myself.
For me, whenever I'm like trying to, I used to go back and like, if I did like an RBF, I would record the whole RBF and review my own gameplay.
I didn't do that. I just foreheaded into the keyboard 100 to 5,000 times until it just finally stuck in my brain. Don't do that.
I was of the opinion that we're piling such complex characters that a lot of times we make inefficient decisions.
Oh yeah.
Don't you think? Like, I think and we get away with it just because the nature of our game. It's quick. It's fast. You can get away with things. But it's more like, could you misusing an iframe here get get you in trouble 3 seconds from now.
Yeah.
And I would see that a lot of the time. I'm just like, wait, I start to notice, like, for example, like, I'm just like, oh, I'm fighting a berserker. He went in to engage on me, but it was actually some sort of fake engage. He went in to try to burn one of my iframes, and then he disengaged, came back at me 4 seconds later. I didn't have the iframe up.
He's playing 4D chess.
And he's toying with me. He's
in my head.
He's in my head. Exactly. I had to and I found that out from like watching VODs of my own duels. I would record my duels, watch them again. I was like, wait a second. That Zerker who runs into me here, he actually sort of exposes himself to a grab. Okay. So maybe I have an opportunity to try to grab him at that moment when he tries to bait out the iframe. Right?
Now you're like,
okay, I'm trying to plan countermeasures.
Now you're trying to, plan countermeasures, maybe even set them up to do it so that you can retaliate.
But this is sort of getting into a different.
Now we're getting too advanced for now.
But still on the idea of protection, I try to look at it like, okay, instead of iframe here, I'll just like SA like attack him or like SA go farther away, like just create more space or something. And then of course it's up to the berserker when he chooses to grab, right? But he was intentionally like going in, not committing the grab, going back in.
Yeah.
After he saw the iframe. And a lot of times also playing against a range class, right? I had this idea that like, let me try to gap close to them, but Awakening Ranger is not terribly great at gap closing. So do I just block the CCs first, then gap close, or do I gap close and then use forward guards when I'm closer?
Right.
I ended up finding out that it would be like, if I used my iframes and stuff to avoid all the range slows and stuff to gap close, and then also like, these aren't like fast movements, by the way, like the range iframes, but to like gap close with iframes first, they would TP away. And then now they're far away.
And now you have no cooldowns.
Now I have no cooldowns.
Or any protections.
And then I would have to forward guard. They get the free cast. I might block some abilities, but I'm stuck still at this space. And then how do I find another answer to gap close again? I couldn't.
You couldn't.
So instead, I would go into their range, right? And then wait for a couple of the debuff skills, like let's say like lightning skills or something, right? Block those first, right? Yeah. And actually just start using SA movement to inch forward.
Yeah.
Right? Just because if maybe I want to stay
because now they're being pressured and you still have grab in Awakening Rangers. So.
And then once they teleport out, now I have the iframes left over to continue dodging more spell casts or something.
Right.
Instead of being like pushed aside.
Or what I would do, like back in the day in BA on Awakening DK, I would do like the same concept you talk about. I would approach like with super armor, getting close, and they know, oh, he's gonna start like, or I'll even just start damage trading with no intention of killing them through the damage trade alone. Eventually they're gonna TP away, but guess what? I saved.
How do you force that first TP? That's always like the big question.
I'm forcing your TP so I can airstrike you in the face when you TP away and try to heal. Like, no, I was setting you up for this moment.
Yeah. Do you know what the cooldown of teleport is?
No, I don't actually.
I don't know either.
I don't. But I just know when they use it, it's not for a while that you can do anything. It's like, I just know for maybe
is
7.
Is it like 10 to 11 or is it 7 to 11?
7 to 10 seconds was what I was going to guess. Tell us if we're right, by the way, like in the comments. I'm very curious. But yeah, it's around that area. Like, I know that if Seeds is on cooldown and they've already TP'd, by the time Seeds is up, maybe TP's just about coming up. Yeah. Or I'll just save it.
Yeah. We don't have like the timers in our head like robots.
It's more just
like they burned this resource. I have some window. Some reasonable window, right?
Yeah.
But back to protection. The classes that have access to that instantaneous movement, that could be like forward guard,
or super
blocking
armor.
all the ranged abilities. Those are the class, and it could be super armor, right?
Right. If you have the HP.
Yeah. Those are the classes that force the TPs.
Yeah.
That force the iframes out of the ranger or something. That
Warrior, Solar Flare.
Yeah. Warrior, charging thrust.
In talking about that, you said like to pressure the TPs. Even for me on Awakening Dark Knight, there is a big difference between a warrior warriors who just burn all their movement right away, and then the players who know what they're doing and they're ruining my life by just approaching slowly with micro movement with forward guard, and I feel the pressure that, oh, they have grab, and now maybe you got slowed by Grave, right? And now you're burning all your movement to get away, but he still has Solar Flare. So even if I like,
he's just trying to tease the dusk out of you.
Yeah,
that's all he's doing.
Literally,
and you know, like you're falling for it. Isn't that like the worst?
That's the worst when you know. But you're like, what do I do?
But what do you do? Like it's up to him to play the card, right? And it's on you to react.
Yeah.
And if it feels like you run out of cards, that's where I go back and I do my VOD review. I do my look. I'm just like, man, was there anything else I could have done in this situation to preserve the iframe once he grabbed me?
Yeah.
Right? Could I have used some kind of unprotected movement even? Right? Because if he was just trying to tease the iframe out the whole time, like maybe I could have just unprotected movement away. Because movement's still movement. Movement's still movement. That's also the thing about protections then. Just knowing when you can just be unprotected.
Yeah.
Do you think it's correct to only play in a state of permanent protection?
No, it's not realistic either. And
it's not realistic.
It kind of limits you. Like it really limits you. Like, yeah, there are moments where obviously you're going to use protections, but there are moments where you can punish someone if you know the timings of their ability, the timing of your ability, and how much of a window you have to use this unprotected skill to, express like what you want to do, whether it's to get a catch from behind them or to the side or just to disengage because you know you can.
Yeah. I think like if you're a player who can evaluate all of those situations where you can find a slightly better moment or an improvement on a situation to use a forward guard here or a super armor here instead, I think you
start getting disgustingly good.
I think
it's like you start like toying with your opponents. They're like, and then when they start saying, there's nothing I could do, you're too strong, then okay, I'm doing what I should, I'm doing my job, and you're doing it very well.
Yeah. Let's move on to the second point.
The next point.
All right, number 1 was protections. Number 2, do you want to say it?
Number 2 is going to be decision making.
No, you got it wrong. Number 2 is going to be...
That was just a test, actually.
Okay.
Making sure you paid attention.
All right.
You passed. Number 2 is spacing.
Spacing. Okay. Spacing. Where does this term come from, by the way, from other genres of games? Do you know? Does it come from somewhere? The idea of...
Fighting games talk about spacing a lot. So, like, whenever you'd see, like, a fighting game, like, let's say, like, a typical term people throw around is like, oh, use, like, your reliable, like, jab. Like,
the quick hit.
It's a quick hit, has low recovery animation.
The Midnight Stinger.
Literally, Midnight Stinger is like,
Midnight Stinger, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And being able to make the most usage out of the reach of the ability, right?
So the range.
Like the range. Okay. Like that's pretty much what it comes down to. Because you could be point blank, and if you go for a jab or like any like, let's say, I'm gonna use Spirit Legacy, for example. Like I could use Spirit Legacy point blank. In fact, let's go ahead and get out the keyboard again with the mouse.
Sure.
And let's say I'm up close to my opponent. Let's go up to this test dummy. And yeah, like I can use, let's say you're going for a standing trade.
Okay.
Super armor damage trade with frontal guard, right? I could use Spirit Legacy from this range, right? But when you're so close, you're opened up to being grabbed, or they can use movement to quickly go behind you.
Sure.
And you're a lot more exposed. But if I'm standing, let's say, I even think like around right here, if I'm using Spirit Legacy, look at how much range or space that's between me and my opponent. I have this much space that I can make use of like my damage ability. And it really, really minimizes counterplay pretty much, right?
Yeah.
If I'm like, even like back here.
They have to use some kind of ability that has movement to get to you.
Right.
Right.
And it keeps me in a safe spot. Like I feel a lot more safe. Yeah. I could even use other stuff like, Spirit Legacy into Nebula to move myself even further back. Yeah. Now there's so much, that looks like a melee skill, right? But look at how much space is between me and my opponent just to pull that off.
We talked about like someone expressing the idea of getting behind a frontal guard, a forward guard. Like in those moments when I see the Spirit Legacy as a ranger, I'm just like, Nebula could come out, right?
Yeah.
I know exactly what ability I'm going to use because I have kept it on cooldown, kept it ready. I know exactly what ability I'm going to use
pocket.
to punish the nebula in case it comes out.
Right.
But you know the situations where I can't punish the nebula?
When someone is factored
When
that
she
in.
spaced it. When she spaced it.
Because I was so far away, but I'm still getting hit.
Yeah. But when she's like really close, and I'm like, oh, you're doing nebula because you want to damage dump on my teammate here who I've been trying to peel, right? I'll let you get away with the first legacy, right? But I have an inkling you're just gonna muscle memory habit your combo. You're either gonna nebula, right? Go
Shattering.
back, and I know exactly how to get behind that forward guard because you're within the range. Or you're gonna do cluster, which is SA. I pocketed my grab. I'm ready for that to come out. The moment I see just that hand go like just like this, I know it's done. I'm putting you on the floor, right? But when she spaced me, all of a sudden I can't get behind that nebula as easily. Or she has a little bit more, or cluster, or because she has time. It just physically takes more time for my character to get behind, so she has time to dusk.
And I see you move. I'm like, oh, I can dusk.
Yeah, you just react to the pure movement. You don't know how I'm moving towards you.
I just know you are, and you have a grab, so I need to get away.
So you just bail. Right. So that's sort of the importance of spacing. That's one of the important things to take into account for spacing.
There's plenty of times where I'm like, in Solare, or I'm kiting out my opponents. And I used to hear it a lot, like if I would ever like go back to a VOD, or someone would like send me a clip of like their comms, and they're like, I can't hit this guy.
I can't hit this guy. Why?
I can't hit him at all. And it's because I'm spacing for it. Like I am specifically, like if you're in this range, I'm only going to do this, or I'm going to try and put myself to position. You start being able to really maximize those abilities and just become, that really sets you apart from others. I think that is like one of the biggest things that people don't really think about a whole lot, because of course you can use like the ability and it'll work, but then for those scenarios where you might get caught, maybe spacing would have helped with that immensely.
Have you played like League of Legends before? Or,
of course.
RTS, like MOBA games. You know when you try to cast this spell on your champion or whatever, you can see the range indicator.
Yeah.
In Black Desert, we don't see those range indicators for our opponents or for ourselves. Right? But you can sort of imagine, like we all have that like range indicator.
Like you feel, we say you feel, what it comes down to is like you start to get a higher understanding. You start expanding your game knowledge, and you start knowing, oh, if he's right here, this will happen, this can happen, this is the radius of it happening.
Can you show me something right now?
Sure.
Just like how we did that DK movement string in episode 1. Show me without casting it, what's the max distance of seed? Like just a generative. What's like the max distance you can hit that dummy all the way back there where that guy is standing with seed?
Ooh, I might.
I also because I've also played a little bit of DK myself too. I think you can hit him here if you aim it at the ground. Down. You gotta hit the ground. You can't target him, right? It's untargetable.
Ooh, wait.
So I'm off.
No, we might still be good. Let's move it up.
I think you gotta move it up a bit more. Like right underneath his the guy's feet, right? Maybe it's up a little bit more.
Just a little bit more. 7-second cooldown. I remember when it was there we go.
Yeah, so I was right.
Just a little bit up.
So I don't play Dark Knight, right? But having fought so many Dark Knights, I sort of know. Now, okay, that kind of seed is hard to use mid-combat though.
It's very hard because if you aim too high, it's not going to happen. Oh, I actually still hit it even further away.
Right.
There we go.
But you
so
see
we might
that
be able
range,
to...
what is that range? Like try to get a top-down view. It was sort of... Yeah.
Oh, wow. We're still hitting it this far, yeah.
That's the possible range. So whenever I play against Dark Knight...
But look, like you said, if you aim too high... Oh, actually. You're still hitting him. We're actually still hitting him. Wait.
That's a generous range. I think it's hard to pull off mid-combat.
It's hard because if I aim just a little bit higher, then it's either not close enough or it's not going to come out at all. But yeah.
I apologize to the audio-only listeners, by the way. We're showing some gameplay right now, but then let's talk about something the audio listeners can hear. Basically, the point is that I think I wanted to get across is certain actions from a class when you're fighting an enemy are only possible at certain ranges. Like, of course, Dark Knight can use seed in melee range.
In fact, I do all the time.
You do all the time because you take the core. I don't think core. Okay, we don't have. Do we need to get there? Tease this convo a little more. I don't think core seed
Lemoria,
is the best option.
If a ranged class is throwing CCs at me and I don't have core seeds, I can be CC'd. Why would I not guarantee?
What if you're not playing against any ranged classes at all?
How could I account for that?
Okay, you can switch the core.
Okay, but what if someone? Okay, warrior's far away. I throw out seeds, right? But in that moment,
how's it gonna punish you?
No, what if in that moment he threw out solar flare, and I got hit and got like stiffened?
Does solar flare reach you from that distance?
What if he like dashed forward? Like what if he dashed forward into solar flare? That happens pretty fast, and it covers a good amount of distance.
We're getting into this topic. Can we go back to spacing?
You started this.
Let's go back to spacing.
You know how I feel about this.
Let's go back to spacing. I think spacing again. It was like it's more. You need to understand spacing because at certain ranges, some things are possible. Some actions from that class, from your opponent, are possible. Mm. Some things are not. I've often heard people use the term. I don't know. Again, I don't know what kind of genre games they get this from. A lot of people like to compare Black Desert to fighting games, so maybe it comes from that. But they like to use the term like advantaged or disadvantaged. Have you ever heard that one before? Like at this range, melee range, Warrior has an advantage because he has protected CC shield charge. He has protected CC chop and kick, SA.
I think that's just a general game.
Or that's just like a general thing, right? At long range, Ranger's advantaged. Suck Ranger's advantaged. Right?
Absolutely.
Up here, you're not.
You're not.
Suck DK, what's her like advantageous space? It would be like whatever seed ranges is one. Mm-hmm. Whatever maybe Wheel of Fortune range kind of gives you a little bit of breathing room in melee.
Right. It has a really big AoE.
It's actually pretty generous now. It's
very
because it got buffed in like 2021. Something. Or was that only Prime? I can't remember.
It was only Prime. But Unveiled Fate, the Rabam is kind of similar in that range.
But if you see a warrior a mile away from you, you know his only options are
Solar Flare, Engage, or Frenzy
Dash, Charging Thrust, like the forward guard, super long movements. Mm-hmm. Or he chucks like that spear at you, right? The one that stiffs you.
Yeah.
And there's also a Rabam version.
I remember when that spear was spammable, by the way. Do you remember?
Yeah, well, I remember people started saying like, don't play Ranger, just play
Warrior.
Just chuck spears all day. But only those things are possible. So how do you think some players are so good at group, like 1vx, like 1v5,
because
1v3?
You're able to just see a class and instantly, like one or two possibilities instantaneously in your head that you have to look out for. I know when I'm seeing a warrior, let's say we're 1vxing and I see a warrior, let's say Meiwa, and I also see like a ranger. I know that when I'm 1vxing, a Meiwa is going to constantly try to go behind me, try and get me in my frontal guards.
Yep.
I know that when a warrior is at a certain distance, I know that they're always going to try and go like for that. The first thing I'm worried about is that solar flare engage with grab.
Sure.
And then I know at the same time, if I'm ever trying to do damage, that ranger is going to be shooting out like CCs and damage from far away. So I have to like account for that. I'm constantly trying to get away from the Meiwa and warrior, take out the ranger first, then try to go for the Meiwa second, and then the warrior third.
Again, what kind of game are we playing? We're playing a game where our classes are all anime protagonists, literal ninjas going behind you, nothing personnel kid, and this happens in a literally the snap of my fingers, right? So if
trust me, I'll train for capitalizing on those small occurrences.
Yeah.
I will train for that.
Right.
In fact, I did with the side strike, airstrike example.
And we're gonna beat this to death in the podcast over and over. But how do you get to the point where you can play at that speed? What do you need?
What tools do you need to do that?
You need the fluency.
You
just need to know, like, I can already do this. Isn't that one of the best parts about our game, actually? The fact that I feel like our game has this sort of individual expressiveness.
Skill expression.
Yeah, no, it's like, I just want to do this now. I already know how to do it.
And then I do it.
When you play an instrument, like you play the piano, you could play, I'll use some like musical terminology. You could play the notes all connected and legato. So it sounds like ba 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 ba. Or you could play it like more short, staccato, articulated. So you can go bum 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 bum, right? Yeah. Like that's a form of expressiveness, just like how we're talking. I feel like Black Desert has that sort of expressiveness with how we play. Like some players, they're gonna like, if you give them that opening up close, they take it.
They're gonna take it every time.
And then some of them might take it like a little differently. The way they punish you.
It might just be, it throws you off.
Yeah.
It's like when I got hit with the
I've never been caught like that before by a ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's
and now it's like my whole...
Who is this guy? Why does he play
Who
like
is this guy? But also, now I don't know how to play anymore because you're doing some stuff I've never seen. Like, this is crazy.
Absolutely. Anything we want to talk more about the spacing as a concept? I think it's just more knowing like if you have good.
If you're able to.
How do you develop good spacing then? What do you think is like the fastest way to develop?
You have to really, at least for me.
You have to PvP a lot. This is the
not
one
only just PvP.
Like,
you might just have to sit in BA and be like, what's the range of my? You have to see. You have to find out what's the range of all this.
You have to fight those classes.
You have to fight the classes or go on the dummy, or both actually, on the dummy and just really test it out. You got to limit test.
I'm of the believer that people can get good at PvP no matter which type of PvP they do. Mm-hmm. But I really think just for the idea of picking apart individual classes' ability range, you find someone of that class to just fight. And you just like, you can just really let yourself get hit, even. You could just play it as like some kind of like learning game almost.
I've done that before.
Yeah,
like, I'm just going to use super
today I'm just going
to
stay protected, autopilot, and see how I get punished.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, okay, I got caught by Shadow Stomp there, why?
Yeah.
Like, you could just let yourself get hit in a way too. I think that's sort of...
Watching videos, watching more than one. I like watching more than one player. How I was developing my skill set, especially on newer, especially if I was trying out a new class. That was like established. I would go check out, hey, what are like the top 3 to 5 players on this class? Or even if they're not, you can learn from someone who's not super high level. Maybe a player isn't good at like a lot of concepts, but they do this one thing like disturbingly well and it just doesn't make sense. Maybe you can figure out how they're doing that and bring that into your arsenal. I really like to take ideas that other people are doing and take the ones I like and add it to my own like play style.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So protection number 1. Okay, just for the players who might have lost.
We went over protections, spacing.
Again, we wanted to give something tangible this time, something concrete.
Yeah.
And PvP fundamental skills. What are the fundamental skills of Black Desert PvP that you need to pick up so that will net you the most return in regards to your in-game improvement?
Yeah.
You will become I don't want to sound like a clickbaity YouTube video, but
how to become number 1 in Solari with these 3 simple steps.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like what are these simple tricks?
Not simple.
Or it's like the only 2 things you need to know to get good at Black Desert.
This
PvP.
is what's preventing you from being number 1, Yeah.
But
actually, kind of.
It's really just like, like staying protected. That's number 1. Like defend your pawn, right? Use your super armor. Boom. That's using your super armor.
Pawns are super armor.
That's using your iframe. Oh, and then this is using your forward guard because and that's not good. You get punished, right? Like, I think protection is 1, and then spacing. Just knowing that, like, yes, the ninja can in fact jump here, get behind you. Okay. I think those 2 probably.
I mean, those all tied in. I think we had a third point that we kind of already, in our rambling, touched on. It was decision making, but all of that was decision making. Like,
yeah.
I
wanted to talk about like resource management, decision making, but that also sounds a little broad.
Yeah.
And we're also sort of running out of time.
Yeah. So I think it'll just have to be saved for a later episode.
So I think that's good then.
Yeah. Go on.
Did you want to say something?
Oh no, you can close it out. Sorry.
All right. Again, we wanted to just go over a skill that you guys can practice and focus on so that you do improve.
Right.
Because nowadays I have been seeing like posts like, because Solari's back.
Like, how do I approach...
Hey, I'm struggling in PvP, And I really wish I could, like, for me, I'm just like, I really want to go in there, just like tell the player, like, hey, DM me. Like, I don't mind like doing a few like duels with you and just poking at your gameplay if you want me to, or like letting you know, like, hey, this is what you should focus on. This is what
and
you
why,
do.
and like
so
when.
That's sort of
It's so rewarding to be able to give out that knowledge too.
You're a big knowledge sharer. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Podcast. Anything else you want to bring up? I think we kind of.
No, I think that's it. But yeah, seed core. By the way,
okay.
it's only seed core. You don't need anything else. There's no point to go. I won't say there's no point, but like you would never take something like Legacy Stun. Why would you do that?
Oh, You know, Spirit Hunt has the stiffness on the core.
Yes, I know.
Does anyone ever use it? No, right?
Actually, so there was this one player. This player.
Did he swear by it?
No, he didn't. He didn't swear by it, but he was like definitely the most out of pocket play style. His name was like J-Step, and he would like
J-Step. I know J-Step.
He would use like Spirit Hunt core, and like Spirit Hunt moves you a little bit, but then he would use that micro movement to super fast move behind your opponent. So like for chess, it's called the London's Fog, right?
Oh God.
The opening, London's Fog.
Nope.
What? It's not? I think it should be.